Hello everybody and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips, and I have two topics to talk about, and this first one, well, I'm excited about both of them for different reasons, but the first one has to do with plant protein versus animal protein. For years, athletes and bodybuilders have been told that they need to eat lots of high-quality protein in order to build muscles. Now, the usual definition for high-quality protein is animal protein. Whey protein in particular is a favorite, and it's the basis for a lot of drink mixes and supplements and energy bars and that sort of thing that are marketed to athletes who are told that it's a superior form of protein that will deliver better results for athletes. Well, a new study shows that pea protein is just slightly more effective than whey protein for building strong muscles. Some other interesting things come out of the study too. Researchers enrolled 161 men for a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trial who were randomized to take 25-gram doses of whey protein, pea protein, or placebo and participate in 12 weeks of resistance training. All of the men got stronger as a result of the resistance training, and an evaluation of the entire group showed no statistical differences between the groups. Now, the first take-home point here is that this is evidence that how you build a muscular body is resistance training, not packing in the protein. I've been saying for years that if you could build muscle in the kitchen, we'd live in a country that all looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Obviously, not the case. The protein loading doesn't do it. But an analysis of the men who were the weakest at the beginning of the study showed something else, and that was that there were significant differences between the pea protein and placebo groups. The pea protein group was better off than the whey protein group, but the differences did not reach statistical significance. So there are two major take-home points. Exercise is the key to a muscular body. It can be done quite effectively without protein loading, and plant protein is just as effective, if not a little more so, than whey protein for building muscles. Athletes don't need to compromise their health in order to become strong, fast, capable athletes. All right? So much for that. Now, the next thing I want to share with you, it's distressing. I don't know how else to say it. I'm distressed about it, angry about it sometimes, but it's the misinformation about the measles outbreak. I mean, the latest one is the one called the Disney measles outbreak. There have been 87 cases reported in 7 states and Mexico, most of which are in California. Now, I want to first put this whole thing in perspective, and then I'm going to address exactly what's being said about this, which just makes me want to throw my shoe at the television set when I watch this stuff. But anyway, the population of California is over 38 million people, Mexico over 115 million. Excluding the other 6 states that have reported measles cases, when 87 people in a total population of 153 million people is a crisis, I want to know, I don't know how these people do their math, but I don't understand. Fox News actually fanned the flames a little bit by reporting that this is an ongoing crisis. Last year, there were 644 cases of measles in 27 states. Ohio was one of them, by the way, and the measles incidence was largely in vaccinated populations. But in any way, backing up and looking at the whole country, 644 cases in a country of 318 million people, and we're supposed to be terrified that the epidemic is coming our way. Again, we need to put this in perspective. Now, the reason for all this panic, well, of course, it's those crazy parents who refuse to vaccinate their children. Nobody wants to focus on the fact that most of the time when an outbreak of infectious disease occurs, outbreak is a subjective term here, most of the infected people are vaccinated. And the evidence strongly is in favor of the fact that the vaccine simply doesn't work. I'm just going to give you 2 or 3 examples here. Last year, a study published in PLOS showed that measles, rubella, and measles, mumps, rubella, or MMR vaccines don't prevent these diseases, even in highly vaccinated populations. In China, despite widespread and free vaccination campaigns that penetrate almost 100% of the population, in 2008, there were 12,782 cases of measles reported in just 1 county. The same thing has happened here in the United States. And it's been going on for years, by the way. I deliberately chose older studies to show you that this isn't new. In 1985, researchers reported in the New England Journal of Medicine that an outbreak of measles in adolescents in Corpus Christi took place in a fully vaccinated population. They reported, and I'm going to read the quote to you because this is what the study said. We conclude that outbreaks of measles can occur in secondary schools even when more than 99% of the students have been vaccinated and more than 95% are immune. This is in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1985. In Montana in 1995, a measles outbreak in a population that had achieved a vaccination rate of 98.7% led researchers to report, quote, "This outbreak suggests that measles transmission may persist in some settings despite appropriate implementation of the current measles elimination strategy." The list goes on. I could give you hundreds of these studies. But hundreds of episodes, not just for measles, by the way, but for chickenpox, mumps, whooping cough, and other diseases against which we inoculate children. In response to this, the true believers, I don't know what else to call them since they insist on promoting vaccines in spite of their failure, continue to ignore this information, and their answer is everybody just gets more vaccines. We're just going to re-vaccinate everybody for everything every few years. These same people often engage in name calling. They marginalize anybody who questions not only the efficacy of the vaccines but their safety too, labeling them as anti-vaccine. Well, I for one am not anti-vaccine. I am for informed consent discussions with parents and adults who want to look at objective evidence and then make their own decision about what to do. But instead of that, we hear a lot of name calling and outright misrepresentation. And I'll give you an example. If I hear one more discussion on radio or television accusing Andrew Wakefield, the gastroenterologist in England who lost his medical license over the vaccine issue, as being responsible for parents not vaccinating their kids due to the danger of his anti-vaccine stance, I'm going to scream. Wakefield never said he was anti-vaccine. He said things like, parents should know that a vaccine used in England had been withdrawn in Canada for safety reasons. Don't you think parents should know that before they allow their kids to have the shot? And perhaps we should have a little more research on vaccine safety. What a radical guy. I can see why you want to vilify somebody like that. By the way, just this morning in the newspaper, I read an article, our local newspaper, I read an article about the Wakefield issue, and it said that he had published it. It made it sound like he was the only author on that paper in the Lancet that was withdrawn. There were 12 or 14 gastroenterologists. 3 of them refused to withdraw. And they took, Andrew, in England, they took his medical license away for it. John Walker Smith, one of the other authors, countersued the government, kept his license, and didn't withdraw his name. But they made it sound in the newspaper, the author of the article, that Wakefield was some lone wolf out there who had made these claims, and that's not at all what happened. Well, there's a good reason why vaccine advocates don't want to talk about the issue and they're against informed decision-making. In addition to the efficacy issues that I've mentioned, the U.S. government has been quietly paying families of vaccine-injured children for damages since the government granted immunity to the vaccine makers for harm resulting for their products many years ago. Few people in the United States even know such a remedy exists, yet this court has paid out close to $3 trillion. Now, it's hard to imagine what the payout would be if more people knew about it. I don't know about you, but I think this is an enormous amount of money to pay out for a problem that the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Centers for Disease Control, and the World Health Organization say does not exist. I think people should answer those types of questions. One of our clients described the situation with vaccines so well that I decided to include it here. Here's the email I got. He says, quote, "This guy wants me to buy his product. So I look into it a bit and I discover that the manufacturer has a history that includes some lying and cover-ups, falsifying data in order to get at least some of their products to market through government channels. So at least some of the time they're not being truthful. At the same time, I find out that there's some evidence that people within the government agency channel admit to falsifying data in order to make some of this company's products look better. Think about the video clip I did last year on the guy at the CDC who came forward and said he did it. All right, lastly, not that I'm a lawsuit kind of guy. If I buy it and something goes wrong with my purchase, even if the risk is relatively low, including wrongful death or other discomfort from physical, emotional damage, part of the deal is that I cannot sue the manufacturer for any damages at all, as they're protected by federal law on this. Even so, the salesman keeps telling me, I gotta have this, my life will be better for it. Interesting. Well, this would be unacceptable in any other situation. People would not agree to anything else under these circumstances. You wouldn't buy a car this way, a house this way. You wouldn't allow people to shove something down your throat and refuse to discuss it with you. I'm frankly, so it's no wonder people are just digging in their heels and refusing to go along with the program. Now, I am frankly encouraged, and I hope this movement will continue to gain traction. We have a lot of problems in this country, and one of the biggest is the outright fraud perpetuated on the public by doctors, drug and device makers, the medical establishment, and the government. They're big and they're powerful, but I don't think they have any idea how much difficulty they're going to have in continuing to get their way when even 10 to 15% of the population knows this information. All right, that's all for today. I'll leave you on this infuriated note. Have a great rest of the day and week, and I will be back to you again on Tuesday with more news.